Selby Bukaba there, and JJ Tabane will be speaking to the Tshwane Mayor Celia Brink and the SA Municipal Workers Union tonight on Power to Truth at 8 p.m. But let's move now to international news, returning to the situation in Gaza and Israel. Last night, a rocket attack on the Ahly Baptist hospital left an estimated 500 people dead. Hamas blames Israel, which has been bombarding Gaza since the attack by Hamas left over 1,400 people dead in Israel, most of them civilians. The IDF says it can prove, however, that it was not responsible for the hospital bombing and blames instead a misfired rocket from a jihadist group. Against that backdrop, US President Joe Biden has flown into Israel. In fact, it was a quick visit because he flew out a little earlier this afternoon. But he landed this morning. He was hugged by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And he did have scheduled meetings with other leaders in the region, but it seems those were cancelled. So let's get an update from our correspondent in Tel Aviv, Ross Cullen. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. We are hearing that Joe Biden left with some sort of agreement from Israel that they would allow humanitarian aid to get into Gaza. What information do you have?
Yeah, that's correct. During his final closing press conference, the US president said that there was an agreement with Israel to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza via Egypt. Israel saying no aid will be going into Gaza via Israel, but there is a stockpile of humanitarian assistance waiting at the Egyptian border with the Gaza Strip to try to be able to allow aid in that way. There is that agreement. We don't have the specifics on if the Gaza border is going to open with Egypt, how long it would stay open. Would people be able to move the other way? So would Palestinians be able to leave the Gaza Strip, or would it just be a set window to bring some aid and aid workers into the Palestinian territory? There was also mentioned by Joe Biden that he would set aside $100 million of extra funding for aid, specifically for the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. Again, no specifics on has that money been released, where it will come from, will it be dedicated to aid, how long will it take before it filters down to the people who are seeking shelter in hospitals, who are seeking shelter in schools, where they need blood donations, where they need trauma kits, where they need more assistance for securing clean water, securing electricity provision. These basic essentials of humanitarian assistance are ready to go, according to the UN humanitarian chief, who was Martin Griffiths, speaking a little bit earlier in Cairo. He says they're ready to go, those essential elements of humanitarian aid. They're on the Egyptian side of the border. They just need all sides to agree on opening it up and getting it into the Palestinian people who need it.
Yeah, and as you say, details are sketchy at the moment. I would imagine timeframes are critical because we are hearing that doctors have so few provisions. They are operating without anaesthetic on hospital floors. This hospital bombing coming just moments, in fact, before Joe Biden was due to depart from the USA for the region. He was hoping to meet with several leaders besides Benjamin Netanyahu, but that was scuppered. Is it fair to say that his mandate altered quite significantly?
Yeah, there was a real impact on the optics and the itinerary for the US president when that rocket strike on the hospital in Gaza was confirmed, when it took place, causing hundreds of fatalities. And it meant that Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian president, decided unilaterally to withdraw from the planned four-way summit that was going to be taking place in Jordan. He said he's going straight back to the West Bank, not interested in meeting Joe Biden, and he will instead be respecting the 3 days of mourning that he declared for the people who died in the hospital bombing. Then the Jordanian king said the whole thing is off. It was meant to be a summit. Biden with Abbas, the Jordanian king, and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, but the whole thing was called off. The Jordanian foreign minister did speak a little bit earlier on Wednesday, and they said that there is no use talking about anything apart from ending the war. However, we do know that Israel has plans to try to crush and destroy Hamas that could well include an incursion into the Gaza Strip, which some sides would see as an escalation or a continuation of the war when everyone is trying to bring about the possibility of creating the conditions for a ceasefire. A ceasefire is exactly what is needed over the area in the Gaza Strip where humanitarian aid could be provided. And other comments from the UN humanitarian chief Martin Griffiths saying that there has been deep negotiation and there needs to be the Red Crescent, for example, must be allowed to deliver aid throughout Gaza without impediment in places of their choice. So there can't be restrictions on the aid when it comes in. But we do know at the moment there's been these grand gestures of there will be aid, but no dates given, no times given, no amounts given of which specific part of the aid package will be going where in Gaza, for example. Will it be delivered by the Egyptians? Will it be delivered by international organisations? So there is still a lot to be discussed and agreed, but yes, Joe Biden did, in his closing statement before departing on Air Force One, say that there had been an agreement between Washington and Israel that aid could go to Gaza via Egypt.
Now, this hospital attack, Israel came out very quickly and very stridently saying it was not them and they can prove it. They say that they believe it was a misfired rocket from Islamic jihadists. Many people in the region simply don't believe that. What did Joe Biden say about who he believes was responsible for that attack?
Oh, he said, a slightly odd phrase, he said it looks as though it was the other team, not you, is how he phrased it to Benjamin Netanyahu. The Israeli Defense Forces saying that it was this smaller militant group based in the Gaza Strip called Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The Israelis are saying that one of their rockets misfired and landed on the hospital. That group is denying it. Hamas are also saying it wasn't us. They believe it was an Israeli airstrike. The Islamic Jihad group are saying it was an Israeli airstrike. The Israelis are saying nothing of the sort. We can prove it because there was no rockets fired in that time, in that direction. There was nothing that we had planned, no operations in that area. And they also described it as a barbaric attack. Either way, hundreds of people are dead, adding to the number of fatalities in the Palestinian territory since the start of the conflict 11 days ago. More than 3,000 people have lost their lives now, and there have been Israeli bombing raids for 11 days straight in different parts of the Gaza Strip. So the situation is still febrile. We had that reaction immediately in places like Amman in Jordan, Beirut in Lebanon, in Ramallah in the West Bank. These waves of anger and demonstrations and protests at the deaths of the people in the Gaza Strip, in the hospital bombing specifically, but more broadly that feeling of anger about the situation generally of the Palestinian people.
Thank you so much for that update. And that, of course, from Tel Aviv is our correspondent Ross Cullen, just telling us that it's not a ceasefire, but it is what Joe Biden says, a commitment that Israel will not stop humanitarian aid moving across from Egypt into Gaza. But we don't have any time frames. We don't know the very details, with time fast running out for people living in Gaza.